I loved the game so much. I remember I burst into tears when they told me, you're done, you have to give up. Coaching is about giving back and getting involved and helping players grow. You need autonomy and mastery and purpose to get drive. And the teams that have got that on a year-on-year basis are the ones that normally are the most successful teams.
Fleckie, I want to play for you right now.
Hello and welcome to Behind the Ruck. It's your number one rugby podcast, episode 86. Okay, you're right on time. You're right on Festina time in the building. And as you know, guys, okay, Behind the Ruck is supported by Super Sport Bet. Okay, it's your time to switch. Switch now and download the app as soon as possible. And also Ticket Pro. You know who I am. Okay, it's the one and only Juan in the house. And next to me is the
Spagey, tail between the legs after the Bulls.
Yes.
Got a loss at home at Loftus Versfeld. But guys, the show go on. I'm dressed today in my Lions because they were impressive.
Incredible.
They were absolutely fantastic. Gianni Lombard was running the show up at Ellis Park for the Lions, but the show goes on.
The show goes on, okay. And Lions, they need to do it this weekend as well, okay? For the Stormers. Do it for the Stormers, eh?
And
looking
guys,
sharp.
just for you know, for Lions and Sharks tickets, Ticket Pro is the ticket supplier for those franchises. Make sure you go to our link tree on our Instagram page to find your way to the website, okay? Beautiful.
Yeah. A massive episode coming up, eh?
Ruckers, what to expect on this episode of your number one rugby podcast, episode 86. We will have up next bounce player, Brightrock bounce player of the week. Oh, it's a bit tough for me this week, okay? But I scratched something out. I crept something. I got someone to give the award to. Then we got our guest for episode 86, Robbie Fleck in the house. Ex-Stormers coach, ex-Stormers player and Springbok center. Current UCT Varsity Cup head coach. We tap into his brain, we tap into his knowledge, we get his opinion on certain rugby aspects that's happening all around the world. This is the one and only show where you want to be.
Yeah.
So pause now, go get your coffee, go get your Oros, and make sure that you don't miss this next conversation. Let's go!
It's that time, Festina time in the house. I'm excited for this one, okay? Obviously a role model of mine when I was growing up. Super excited to catch up and see what the boy is up to, okay? But before we get there, let's play the bounce. Okay, guys, this is made just for you by Brightrock, the associate sponsor of the Vodacom Bulls and the DHL Stormers. And we're gonna start with the Vodacom Bulls. Okay, after that, what?
Ruckers, Vodacom Bulls bounce player of the week. I'm going to give it to David Kriel, center of the Vodacom Bulls. I thought his place kicking to poles were outstanding in tough conditions where the field was slippery. He kept us in the game, and for me, he gets one of this. Not the customary place kicker for the Bulls, obviously losing Goosen, so he's done an outstanding job.
Okay.
And in a rain-laden game, David Kriel, my bounce player of the week.
Conditions indeed, okay? And the bounce player for the DHL Stormers with all smiles. It's louder, okay? Louder, say it, Ben louder. Ben louder in the building. Oh, incredible. This technical stuff, okay? The bread and butter stuff, he was incredible. The high balls, the physicality. He reminded me a little bit of Julian Savia, the bus, and a little bit of Lomo coming through the ranks there as well. Physicality was crucial and important parts of the game, okay? So we can get the ball rolling and obviously got on top at the end of the day, yeah.
Brilliant. Brightrock Derby game, guys.
That is your
and
bounce player of the week.
congratulations to the boys.
Congratulations, hey guys. Hey, woof. Hey, that's behind us. Let's move forward. I'm excited to speak to Robbie Fleck. Hey, okay, guys. Up next, Robbie Fleck. Here we go.
Ruckers, Cape Town, royalty. I'm telling you guys, royalty. Former Stormers center, former Stormers coach, current UCT head coach and South African Springbok legend, Robbie Fleck. How do you like that introduction?
It's the best I've ever had. Thank you very much.
It's a pleasure.
Fleckie, you good? How's things with you?
Yeah, Joby's very good, thank you. Thanks for having me. But lovely to be here and back in rugby and enjoying it.
Yeah, a lot going on, Varsity Cup and stuff. Your Mondays are full, your weekends are full. Eh?
When I signed up, I didn't think I'd be that busy. But back into it. It's full on. But I'm enjoying it. It's a bit of a passion project, to get back into the game. But loving it.
Yeah.
And Ruckers, for context, Coach Robbie Fleck is back with UCT Varsity Cup. Coachie, why back to coaching after
A break.
a break?
Gap year. Just call it a gap year.
Gap year. No, so guys, I when I finished up at the Stormers, I took about a year off and much needed break. And then I got asked by UCT to go back there and do some sort of strategy work with them. And then I actually got back in with Tom Dawson-Squibb. And then I got back into the coaching. He gave me the attacking role and then coaching role. And then it's been 4 years of that and I loved it. And I got my passion for the game again. You know, I lost it a little bit at the end of my time with the Stormers, but, and I found that passion. So, and UCT were in a transition this year and they needed a head coach just to get them through to the next 2 years. And they offered me the coaching job. Yeah. So I thought, why not? Like I'm loving it, and it's a great club and there's such good, players there and the gees is lekker, the culture's great. So, it was an obvious decision.
And the season so far, 2 out of 3, and the week coming up is Marties.
So it's Wits next week, and then it's Marties. But good jobs. The pre-season was, look, we trained really well, and we got a good group of youngsters coming through, and the pre-season games didn't go off to the best that we could have. We did, we didn't have a great. You were there for the Marties game. But, we've, 2 out of 3. And possibly, if we reflect on the CUT game last weekend, we actually played really well in terms of what we want to do and the style that we want to play, but we just didn't convert. So I think we had 23 entries into the 22 and we only converted on 3 of those. So we're playing good rugby, but we just didn't get the win. And then obviously last night was much better. So a good win against Tix, who I feel is a much improved side. They tested us with their maul and their set piece, but once we got going, I feel that we were comfortable at the end.
Yeah.
And Fleckie, from coaching the Stormers to now coaching Varsity Cup, what has changed in your coaching? Let me put it to you like that: coaching youngsters, and then when you were coaching the Stormers, coaching Springboks.
Look, I think that obviously the pressures are quite different. It's coaching at Stormers level. That's an international team, and the spotlight's on you. Every day, and obviously results matter. Results matter too at Varsity Cup level and with UCT. But what I feel is that like I said, I probably lost my passion towards the end of my head coaching role at Stormers, and I think I needed that much deserved break. And I've come back with a newfound passion for the game, and that's what it's about, really. So. Coaching is about giving back and getting involved and helping players grow both on and off the field. And I feel that at UCT I can do that. There's a lot of freedom there, and just the way that they view the game and how the game should be played. They're trying to build a legacy on a style of play, which is a bit like Toulouse and like if you think about Brazil football and you think about the West Indies cricket. It's all about the way they want to play the game, that style, and that's what we're trying to do. So we try and move away from the results, and we focus on that brand, and we want to build a legacy there. So that for me is exciting, and that's what I love the most about
it. So that more keep the ball alive type of approach,
absolutely
less technical of structure.
Yeah, a lot more freedom, Dribbies, and really, I think we try to do it at the Stormers at some stages, and it's a lot more difficult to do that at a higher level. I think at this level, it's probably a little bit easier, a little bit more space, a little bit more time on the ball. And I think once we get that skill right and we focus on getting those skills right to play that expansive, free-flowing rugby, then I think that from there, the players can only get better and can add value to both UCT and South African rugby. So, we want, our players leaving, UCT going, geez, that was an amazing journey. We played amazing rugby, win or lose. I've got better as a player. I've become a better human being, and that's where we sort of, try and land it there.
That's extremely refreshing to hear, Fleckie.
Yeah. Well, it's quite risky in the sense that because people want you to win and you want to win Varsity Cup, but we've been driving this, and there's got to be balance. You just remember that these guys are students as well. Some of them want to just remain students and they don't want to continue their rugby career post their Varsity Cup, and they want to go into business. But there are some guys there who want to further their careers in rugby, and we've got to be able to cater to both.
Balance,
But it's more of a journey, and it's a story, and that's what we're trying to create. And hopefully they'll become better players, and people for it.
Yeah, and Monday night rugby, is captain's run on a Sunday or Saturday?
It is. What? It is, Jubbies. I'm there from Komiki on a Sunday afternoon, driving in. Yeah, but we're at UCT at 5 o'clock on a Sunday evening, but it's it's fun. It's just getting together. It's another opportunity for us to connect as men and have a good time.
Yeah. You're talking about, Monday rugby. Let's go Saturday rugby as well. There's a massive URC games that was up this past weekend. We had Lions versus the Sharks at 2:30. Then Stormers versus the Bulls. It's supposed to be 5 o'clock, but 10 past 6. They got 10 past 6.
Yeah. Did you see the look?
No, okay. I'm not reading anything today. Okay, so we're taking it easy. Guys' thoughts, especially on that first game. 38-0 with 2 minutes to go with the Sharkies. Did we expect that against the
I think no one expected it. Fleckie, I don't know what's your thoughts. It's been a very strange URC when it comes to the local derbies. I feel like everybody's has got one up on each other. But I definitely didn't see that coming. After the Sharks went to Loftus, beat the Bulls at Loftus, I didn't see that performance coming.
And the Lions losing against the Bulls, so it was...
You know it is. You take the Lions, and if you don't take them seriously, then you're done. And for me, I love the way the Lions are. They're all about having fun, expression, freedom, scoring tries, and that makes them dangerous.
Yeah.
Every single team that goes up there thinking, look, we can put one past them, but not this team. And I feel that the Lions of old, under Johan Ackerman, it's coming together there. And they're a bunch of guys who sort of have probably moved from other unions, but they're culturally very strong. They play for the right reasons, and it makes them a very dangerous team.
They're one union that creates their own Springboks.
Yeah.
And pretty much the Springboks now, if you look at QAnon and all these boys that became Springboks, it's similar to the 2016 Lions team with Faf, and I think it was Franco, and Malcolm Marx, and all these boys. Just good to see, especially what Jacques Fourie and also Monastery and these boys create there.
Yeah, I agree, Jubs. And it's just the way the coaches are going about it, and culturally the union, they just encourage, playing rugby and expressing yourself. And you can see that through. They don't play with any fear, and that comes through. And the pressure's always on the other side, going up there to play them, or anywhere, home or away. So I think it just really makes them, I've got a lot of respect for them. I like the way they play the game.
Yeah, that's why we look like this.
I want to give a lot of credit, and I want to pick your two's minds. I feel like what the Lions currently are doing well, you said back then with Fafi and Franco, they found boys after they were 21. I think what they're doing now is their scouting department is excellent. They went to go find right now the under-19 last year, Craven Week Player of the Year, Zayden Felix signed to the Lions.
He's playing for UJ
for
now.
UJ.
For UJ, it's been dangerous.
They look, unfortunately for the Cape Townians, they come down to Paul Boy side. They sign really good young players at 18 years old. So their scouting, I think they're getting right, and they don't have to waste money on getting expensive experienced players to their union.
So I agree, and I think what they're offering these kids is a chance. You sign up with the Bulls or the Stormers or the Sharks, there's a pecking order, and there's a current Springbok in place, and then you probably only 3 or 4 in line. Where the Lions, they're going, hang on, I'm dangling a bit of a carrot here that you could be a number 1 and number 2 choice in a URC campaign. And a lot of these youngsters sign up for that, just for that opportunity, because they know if they stay in Western Province, they're going to have to wait 2 or 3 years before they get that opportunity, which is, creates a good energy and lots of opportunities for these youngsters.
Boys, is that the smarter play if you're coming out of SA schools, playing Craven Week? Maybe because it's too. I think it's a two-headed monster. Because the bigger unions are offering more financial incentives, where the Lions might say, we're not paying you X amount of money, but within the next 2 years, you might have 15 URC caps.
Yeah, 100%, yeah.
And that gives you the opportunity later on, say after your first 2 or 3 years, if the Lions haven't hooked you up in terms of the culture and you want to stay there, that you could, make a name for yourself and get a bigger contract elsewhere, whether that's back, in Cape Town or overseas. So if I was a young kid and the Lions are dangling something like that, it's a huge opportunity.
Exposes actually better than the money now.
I would think so.
Because it's about the growth with what you can get.
Correct.
The type of money the boys are getting these days, the Colby's 11 millions and stuff like that. Yeah. So sometimes the pathway of getting there slowly or bigger jumps later on, it's much easier.
Yeah, and I think the risk is that if the coaching isn't good, and obviously if they're not winning, but the coaching is good at the Lions and they are winning games. So the kids are getting good exposure at a high level, and they're getting better as players, and they're playing at a top level at an earlier time. So Yeah, it's they can't compete against the Sharks and the Bulls and who's the other one? Sorry, Stormers in terms of budget.
Yeah,
because they just can't. But they're giving.
And sometimes they also go for the people they want because they signed Edwin van der Merwe from the Stormers, and look what he's done. So it's about targeting what they want as well.
Exactly,
that can create this monster.
Boys, there's about 40 agents that, if they're watching what we just said now, that will not be happy with the three of us. Okay, agents, put on your seatbelt. It's not all about you. Boys, another guy for me that I think needs a lot of praise after the last 2 weeks. Fly off Sanele Noamba left.
Yes.
Gianni Lombard slotted
in easy, seamlessly.
Have you been impressed with his play, Fleckie, at the fly-off pivotal position?
Absolutely. And again, it's a young kid who can play with freedom. It's his gig. He's running the show, and I just love the way he controls the game. He's got a great little pass. He's got a good kicking game, but his running game is, it's outstanding. He attacks the line. He puts the defense under pressure. So he's certainly a player that has grown over time, and he's going to go far.
And his basics as well, because kicking to poles as well, he's been on song as well. But credit must also go to a guy like Monestein that helps him. Those small little details makes a big difference. And I mean, if you look at the Stormers game as well, just that moment where he clapped the hands, it's like, listen, everything is important to him, which makes a big difference.
And he plays with a lot of confidence for such a young kid, and that's what you want, right? You want these kids taking over, playing with confidence and freedom, and that's what makes them so dangerous.
And Lions, are we going top 8? You think they can squeeze through? No, 100%, guys. I believe.
No, look, they obviously have one game in hand, so the chances are really good. And obviously with the Stormers this past, that we're going to talk about it now, I think 4 teams can qualify top 8. I believe, look, it's all going to depend what Leinster is going to bring to South Africa, whether they will be touring with James Lowe, Jameson, Gibson Parks and those boys, or they will be taking a break before the Lions tour come July in Australia. But I'm going to back the Lions. Like Fleckie said now, the brand of rugby they play, it's something you switch on the TV for.
Yes.
Seeing Ed Wool scoring tries.
Yes.
And that part I am really excited for.
If you look at this weekend, we've got the Sharks versus the Lions at 2 o'clock on Saturday. It's actually a rematch of what happened last weekend. It's the only match from the URC. What are we expecting?
To answer your question about the top 8, the only concern I do have is when they come up against a proper structured side with a proper set piece, and they put you under pressure. And that's where, if the Sharks get their stuff right, that's where they can put the Lions under some pressure. If you think about those European sides in the URC, the Irish sides, whatever the case, when they get it going up front, it's tough to play them. Even the Bulls, even the Stormers, even the Sharks with the packs that they got, they battle, especially over there. So that is probably their Achilles heel at the moment. The brand is brilliant. When they turn it on, they can turn it on, but it could also be their Achilles heel as well, in terms of loose possession, losing ball, and getting under pressure at set piece. And that's, if I was the Sharks, that's where I'd look. I wouldn't give them anything. I wouldn't give them a hope, and I'd put them under immense pressure up front.
And the Sharks, I was looking for you, because sometimes when you have too much Springboks, does it give you a bit of a shake?
Well, if they get it right culturally and they're all playing for the jersey, then obviously, a Shark side fully laden with Springboks is going to be tough to beat, and they've shown that. When they turn up, they can play, but they're just a little bit inconsistent for me. It's one good game, then one average game, and they've got to get that right. And I think you are right when there's a lot of Springboks and they've got other things on their minds. How do you get them all to play for that jersey and for the franchise and to go on to win the URC? So they've got to get some consistency in their game.
Fleckie, talking about the consistency, is there a direct correlation with culture? Does culture drive consistency?
I would think so. If you've got that outcome that you're pulling all together and you want to win, there's a common goal in place. And like us at UCT, ours is, our culture is all about the brand and the style. And I would think that the Lions are the same. So at least they're playing for a purpose. They've got a bigger thing that they're playing for. What are the Sharks playing for? And culture, drives all those things. Consistency, high performance, everything. It's key. And if there's a little bit of a disruption in the culture, then you're not going to win the games that you probably shouldn't win. Where the Lions will, because they're desperate and they want to do something. And there's a higher purpose or a bigger purpose, and they'll squeak the games that they probably shouldn't win, and then they'll absolutely thrash the opposition when they're on song. So, yeah, I would think that culture is key to any success.
Yeah, and from a coaching point of view, how do you get a buy-in from juniors, seniors, and all these people to get that culture?
Yeah, as I say, it's got to be something bigger than the players and the franchise. What are they playing for? And there's got to be a purpose. And if everyone buys into that purpose, and it can't be sort of top down, the coach saying, well, this is our purpose for the year. It's got to be a collective effort of deciding of what that is. You need autonomy and mastery and purpose to get drive. And what is that drive? You need all three of those elements to get you drive. And and the teams that have got that on a year-on-year basis are the ones that normally are the most successful teams in the.
Shit, Fleckie, I want to play for you right now.
That's why we're successful.
Good, yeah.
Cape Town and Cape Town are all Lions supporters this weekend, because if the Lions beat the Sharks, who gets the shield? The Stormers.
Really?
Yes, the Stormers. Okay,
I must say the shield has slipped through the cracks once it comes to the...
Really? I did not know that.
Yes, because it's all about when you play the South African teams, and it's all about the South African...
Okay.
It's obviously the shield, but so... I mean, we're not looking pretty at the overall law, but it's opportunity.
You just want to take anything you can get right now, eh?
You take a silverware.
You must.
Right or wrong?
You take the
Back
silverware.
in the deal, we took the shield, we took the curry cup, even if it's a small. We take what we get.
We take what we get.
Okay.
Come on, Cape Town. We're behind them.
But boytjies, North-South derby, Stormers, ex-Stormers, player, ex-Stormers coach. Were you impressed by the grit that the Stormers showed with altitude? I obviously had my piece to say about altitude last week, guys. But going up against where a lot of people wrote off the Stormers, media obviously saying the Bulls might take how impressed were you by the Stormers' performance?
Very impressive. From where the Stormers have come, about a month or two ago, with the amount of injuries that they've had, but they just lost their way in terms of the way they wanted to play the game. I felt, Jubies, that we were a little bit loose and lots of offloads and unnecessary stuff.
That's what we were. That's our DNA for the past 4 years. It's about DNA. You keep the ball alive.
Which is fine, and that's fine, but you forgot to go forward, And when the Storms go forward, they're a different side. And what I mean by that is defensively, aggressive defense going forward, getting into the face, which we know Norman can do and the players can follow suit. A strong maul, a strong line-out, a scrum that's going forward. Carries, just going forward and not trying to go lateral. And I felt that we were just too lateral and we lost our way a little bit. But now they've brought that back. And you could see it, against the Bulls, against all the teams now in the last couple of weeks, they've had some dominance again. And they're getting that go-forward ball, which brings in the likes of the Galants and all these guys in the offloads and the space and makes it a lot easier. So that is the challenge for the Stormers. And as they get players coming back from injury, I think they're just going to get build with a lot more confidence. But go forward first, and then you'll see 100%, a good side.
Yeah. And I mean, from a attacking point of view, that should be your principle. That should be your target, to go forward, because it makes the offload easier. It makes staying on top a little bit easier.
Exactly.
And then
but I think, I think the Stormers always go forward. The point of difference for me in this game was their line-out functioned.
Yeah.
In a very long time, the Stormers line-out functioned. Josie and Ruben, they got it right. They got ball where they wanted to, where it's middle of back ball, where in flip side, the Bulls' strength didn't function.
Yeah.
We got penalties from our scrum, but we couldn't execute with our line-out. I think we lost probably all our line-outs in the first half. We couldn't build scoreboard pressure through Velko dominating at scrum time. And that for me was a key point of difference.
So the Bulls' DNA couldn't function, right? Their identity, who they are, and I mean, that's, it's quite surprising that they struggled in the line-out and the Stormers did well, because usually it's the other way around.
Yeah.
So it's and that probably gave the Stormers a bit of hope and a bit of life that they can actually win this game. Yeah, look, they were going backwards in the scrum, but everything else that they were doing well, and they were surviving. And when it's close up there, you know what it's like. If the Stormers are in with a shot at the end, you know that they're going to
get chirpy.
Yeah. There's belief.
They get very chirpy, Ruckers, okay, when the Stormers are in the game.
When we're up there, I mean, the first 20 minutes is always important. And we started well with Evan Roos getting a penalty with 3 or 6 points ahead early on. But it's also the Bulls, what the Bulls' DNA were or was. It's about the kicking game and the contestables. They lost all of it, and we were more clinical.
Look, and the Bulls tend to run it a little bit more, and rightly so. If you look what they've got outside them,
got
Billy
Willie
running the show, and then they've got all these exciting backs, So That's understandable, but when you're playing against the Stormers, what has worked in the past? It's that DNA, that identity of a good kicking game, strong set piece, put the pressure on the Stormers. They want to play rugby, force them into areas, starve them off possession, then you win the game. And you can win it quite comfortably. But they let the Stormers in.
Yeah. What Bulls do you like? Do you like the technical Bulls kicking game, or do you like the jouer, keep the ball alive, staying on top?
Look, for me, it's all dependent on the players that they sign, the way they play. We sign big, dominating forwards, getting Polly back, so it's a type of way the Bulls want to play. And if we sign those players, we have to play a certain way of rugby to the strength of those players. Bulls rugby, as Fleckie just mentioned, it's box kicks, it's kick pressure, it's territory, applying pressure through the maul, having Volko low, obviously dominating the scrum currently. It's scrum penalties, kick for the corner, the maul function, scoreboard pressure.
So which one do you like? Do you like the Goosen, Willie type of vibe, or do you like the Pollard coming back and very technical and kick putting pressure on that?
I'll go with Polly. I think if
I think they're going to be more successful.
Solidness, you want solidness.
I think they're going to be more successful with a Polly type player. Like you said, the signing of him is a clear indication of where they're going to go. And they're going to go back to their roots and their DNA, and they're going to be tough to beat.
And I think Keenan will complement Polly a lot on the outside with his aerial ability. So the signings force us to play away, and I think Jakey likes it.
I mean, Keenan, when we went off early, it was also massive. Lost you boys, and even Kobus Visa as well. So
playing well, eh?
Yeah, yes. So a lot to take into account.
They say there's some really good young forwards coming through there.
Any South African teams in playoffs, finals, URC? Oh, boys, come on. I need more.
Yes, the air went out of the room now.
You should have been like, yes, sitting at third on the low.
Boys,
Storm must be no.
Fleckie, I love the Bulls, and I've always loved the Bulls. But there's some parts of our game, we always leave tries out there defensively. I just think defensively, there's certain aspects of our game we always leave tries. We take into consideration how we play against Glasgow. Somehow Coach Franks finds ways back to the blind, especially early on, targeting 1, 2, 3, 5 that stays after our lineouts, and we leak tries there. So defensively, I'm not as...
Turning the knife.
Yes.
Because against the Lions, it was 17-0 up, and the next minute it was 17-14.
And then my other concern I've always had, and obviously we're using Willie now to plug a hole, for me is that pivotal role at number 10. That is the concerning area for me and the Bulls currently.
Okay, we'll see what's going to happen. Fleckie, do you watch a lot of rugby? Like URC, there's Super Rugby, there's Six Nations.
So, I do actually. I mean, I've probably been watching a lot more of the Heineken Cup than anything. The Investec Champions Cup.
Old school, I like
it.
Investec Cup.
Where's the editor? Bring some Heineken. He wants
You're going to
Heineken.
edit that out. But I like to watch that purely because of the French teams. I've got a huge fascination with Toulouse at the moment. I love what they're doing and how they play their game, and they are the trendsetters in the way the game should be played. They've got a good balance between strong set piece, linking loose forwards, and outstanding back play. And you talk about Jouet, they can turn it on, but then they can keep it nice and tight. So I watch them just out of interest and learning.
Yeah, I love it too, yeah.
And then obviously I like to watch the likes in the URC and in the Investec Champions Cup is the likes of Leinster. Like they a quality international team. I've been watching a little bit of Super Rugby of late in the mornings.
Yeah, we love it. Yeah.
So just checking where the Crusaders are and how they're going. The Blues are on a bit of a downfall. Chiefs for me trendsetters in New Zealand. And what they're doing, they're interesting. They're choosing big forwards, big mobile forwards, strong set piece, and electric backs. So they're starting to find, their sort of DNA and how the game should be played. So it'll be interesting what happens with All Black selections later on.
Yeah, later on, that big clash, Eden Park in Wellington is going to be massive. But you spoke about as well the type of rugby in Toulouse, because we had Jack Willis on the show and Thibault Flamont, and he spoke about the DNA of keeping the ball alive. They're playing a lot of small-sided games, and all the attention goes into that, and you can see it on weekends. Trying to get on top, trying to keep the ball alive.
That's exactly what we're trying to do at UCT is these rondo games, small-sided games, rondo games, into medium-sized games,
off-side touch.
It's all about what, if you think about way back in the day, there was a lot of touch at trainings and upskilling the guys, vision and decision stuff, and taking out the structure of the game and being able to play obviously within structure, but when that ball is fast and there's a bit of space in it, that's when you want to capitalize. And they're getting a lot of momentum and go forward ball through their pack, but they're getting space, but they're offloading all the time, and their ability to keep that ball alive, just phase after phase or offload
Props
also,
and locks
and especially in the edge, it's amazing that they've got this ability to play through the middle, but as soon as they go to the edge, it's 2-3 passes or offloads and they're gone, and that's what I think the world is, has got to stand up and take notice. And if you think about France in the last game against Italy, what they did, I mean, they went through the middle, they went around them. I mean, they are a proper rugby team. No? And it's all, I think, coming from that Toulouse mindset.
Yeah.
Biggest threat to the Springboks?
France, without a doubt. Without a doubt.
France, no Ireland.
No, I think, Ireland will always be there. And I think what's happening with Ireland, there's, 1 or 2 youngsters coming through, but not enough. And I think, where Springbok rugby is, we're going to be strong for a number of years going forward. But France, for me, is the real challenge at the moment. I think New Zealand, under Scott Robertson, he's going to get it right. And I think if they start developing some big forwards and some grunt up front and handle our set piece, they will become a challenge. But France, for me, is just, the size of those guys, their athletic ability and the skill level, they're starting to, play the French way, which makes them dangerous.
And Fleckie, you can agree or disagree with me on this one. I've always had Ruckus opinion where Ireland is obviously system-based, right? But they can never dent Springboks physically. Yeah. Whether it is with a multifaceted rugby, they try and play, they can't dent us, so they can never get behind us to put us under pressure.
Agree.
But France can do that.
Yes.
Because they've got Moafana, they got Movaka at the edge of skating. So they are the only team that can get behind our Russ. And that for me would make it difficult the day that they get it right against us specifically.
Yeah, 100% agree. And your analysis of Ireland is spot on. They beat you with special players and clever players in the multi-phase, but it doesn't work against the Springboks. We're just big human beings, and we're putting stop to any go forward. They have to come up with a really, really smart play to beat us that the Springboks haven't seen. But they only can get 1 or 2 of those in a game, and if they even work in the game, that's another thing. I agree. I think that we've got Ireland's number going forward, but France is the challenge because physically they can match us and they can dent that line. They can and they've got the backs with huge pace and explosiveness. That's the challenge. I agree.
While we're on France and Ireland, this weekend fixes 6 nations. Ireland versus France, 4:15. We got Scotland versus Wales at 6:45 on Saturday, and Sunday it's England versus Italy at 5:00. Ireland versus France. It is basically the final of 6 nations.
Yeah.
100%. In Dublin. What's happening? Who are you going with? As we said, for me personally...
Again, the air. Left the room.
Now, when we started a couple of weeks ago, I said France. France is taking this because I believe France is the informed team at the moment. If the Ponte obviously plays and if Intermac is ready and all these players, Ireland is sometimes they dare, sometimes anything can happen. If you look at with Wales, the first 60 minutes as well. Yeah. I'm going with France to win it because this is the final. Whoever wins here is pretty much going to take it.
Chubby's, France played against England at Twickenham and they lost at 26-24, whatever the score was. They had about 15 entries into the 22 and they only converted 2 of those, whatever. They created try-scoring opportunity after, just time and time again. They just couldn't get across the line. What did they do after that? They didn't panic. They said, as part of the loss, we played our way, the French way, and we were actually excellent. We just lost the game. And they had a little internal review and they said, all we want to do is convert those opportunities and score tries. That was the focus. They had to get a bit better at the breakdown because Curry and those guys disrupted them in the breakdown. They couldn't get that continuity that they love. When their focus came to Italy, they just said, we need to be brutal at the breakdown and we need to score tries. And that's all they spoke about, and they spoke about doing it the French way. They scored 11 tries against Italy. And Italy is not a bad side. They're a good side. They're competitive. 11 tries at international level against a top team is tough to do. But they did it the French way. That makes them dangerous because they got so much belief in their players, the way they play the game. They're going to go to Ireland. They don't have to come with anything special. They just have to play the French way and they just have to go to Dublin and do that. And that makes them dangerous. So for me, I would rather have them winning because of the way they play the game, they view the game, than, Ireland just trying to outsmart them with multi-phase stuff.
But also on the other hand is if you come off of a great victory like against Italy, and Ireland obviously almost should have lost, isn't that sometimes better to come off a difficult win than an easy win?
But that's why I say the story, because France are growing and they've got a growing belief in themselves. So I think that big win is only going to push them on.
And I want to latch on to what Fleckie, the French, when I played with the French, they get more confident. So once they have a good training session, they're better the next day. Yeah. So they don't do well with disappointment. They actually get better with confidence. So I think the Frenchies will be definitely up for it. My only thing is Roman Hintermark back?
Yep.
Yeah.
Because for me, Jellybear is exciting, he's really good. Yeah. But that connection with Dupont and Roman Hintermark, it is crucial. It's the backbone of French rugby and Toulouse rugby.
And Pino back as well.
Damien Pino back. I can't wait for the 9 deal. Jameson, Gibson Park.
Yeah. Two best players in the world, eh?
I believe.
Yeah.
Two best.
Yeah.
And if you have to pick.
I'm a Dupont fan, but I love the way he plays. But I mean, Gibson Park has taken the service level of a 9 to another level.
Yeah, but Gibson Park sometimes when it's the big games, like look at the final Western Champions Cup final against Dupont, it got silent a bit. But Dupont every game, it doesn't matter who it plays. If it's the Springboks, if it's a.
But that's why I always challenge him, Fleckie.
Yes,
so Dupont has got the individual ability. He is an individual freak.
Strong.
He is the best 9 in the world. I do agree. But Jameson Gibson Park make the Irish way work.
Correct.
The way he plays at 9.
Yeah, for the Irish, yeah.
So if he is outstanding Saturday, Ireland will be a massive threat.
Yeah.
Especially if they get that ruck speed under 3 seconds per breakdown. That for me will be the interesting factor.
Very interesting, yeah. Now the point is everything in that team. I mean, especially from a leader's point of view as well.
I wanted to ask you this question, but I think you gave me the answer. If Fleckie had to choose one of those two for your team, the way you play your rugby, who are you picking?
Yeah, the way UCT play. I mean, because that's the team. Well, there's a young kid playing for us called Asad Moos.
Yes, I know that.
He is an exceptional rugby player. And he is the more Jameson Gibson Park mold. And he makes our game work. The speed of ball that you speak about, when we get quick rucks, he's there. His service is exceptional. He's like a young Aaron Smith. And for me, he's an outstanding rugby player coming through the ranks in South Africa. So I'd say what works for us would probably be a Jamie Gibson Park. But you always want a Dupont somewhere.
Yeah. You want to steal a ball now and then. You want a nice kicking game.
As you say, he's the best rugby player in the world. He is.
He is? Second debate. I agree with you. Best rugby player in the world. The two of us, no, I agree with that. Okay. But for me, where I get my seatbelt on Fleck is once we start with the GOAT stuff.
With the era stuff. And
greatest. For me, there's still Peter Step the Twait. 2 World Rugby Players of the Year. We got Cheslin Colby. Yep. So when it comes to the greatest of all time in this decade or era, that's where I put on my seatbelt a little bit, Fleckie. How do you feel about that topic of conversation?
No, I think it's a fair comment. I mean, to also look at Dupont, he plays for the best provincial side in the world. I mean, Toulouse are the best in the world, and he plays for France, which is number 2 or 3 best in the world as well. So he's playing for good teams, and he operates well in a good team. So I guess he needs to be. Are there certain challenges? There's always the big question mark. Has he come to South Africa, played for France? In South Africa, has he been tested? Those debates will always happen. But I think he's getting close to being a real GOAT. But he's a phenomenal rugby player. Yeah. And I just like the way he is. He looks incredibly humble and focused, and he wants to be the best. And he wants France to be the best. And I love that.
Yeah, and he said as well, they asked him, does he care if he plays 9 or 10? He said 9, 10, 11, 12, it doesn't matter. He just wants to play. Yeah.
But boys, sidetrack again. Sorry, Ruckers, I'm full of ideas today.
From the side, ruck entry.
How great is it that rugby has superstars for the entertainment aspect of our game long term? the DuPont, the Siakulisis, the Cheslin Colbys, the Owen Ferrells. We actually have superstars in the social media era.
It's good for the youth as well, because you need the youth to look up to someone, and that grows the game as well.
No, absolutely. I think these stars are much needed, and they need to be celebrated. You know, it's rugby's going through quite a challenge, and at schoolboy level, where not just in this country, you know, all over the world, the game is becoming really physical, really fast, and the athletes are getting bigger and stronger. So there is an element of risk to it, and some people are saying, well, you know, do we want would you like my son to be involved in rugby? But these superstars, like you say, attract, you know, guys to the game, guys and girls to the game, and you need them. And, you know, we need to look after these kids at grassroots level, encourage the game and make it safe, whatever the case may be. But these superstars make it great.
Look after the superstars like the Rudy Pages and stuff.
There we go. You know, and it's exciting. You know, I look at my young boy. You know, they love rugby, but you know, they love Sia. They love all these superstars. They want to be there. Look, they may not be, you know, one of those players later on in life, but at least they aspire, and it makes the game, you know, fun and part. You know, you want to be part of something, and those guys do create that.
Yeah, we speak about, you know, Ireland, France. We'll be getting them in the autumn series, the end of the year. What do we expect in Dublin, also in France as well? You know, it's a bit of a rematch of what happened in the Rugby World Cup. They won their revenge. 1 point. What's
so? Are we playing them at the end of the year again?
Yes.
Look, if I look at South African rugby and where we are and where we're going, I'm super, super excited what we can do. I mean, we are just like a sausage machine. You know, we're just producing talented players year on year, and they've been exceptionally well coached at provincial level, and then obviously at the top. I mean, now Felix Jones is back. It's you know, there's, you know, Tony Brown is one of the best attacking coaches in world rugby. We all know about Rassie. I mean, our guys are getting exposed to top coaching, and this Springbok side, I can only see it getting better and stronger and stronger and stronger. And a possible 3 World Cups in a row is on the cards. And you know, will we win those games? I'd certainly think we would win 1 out of the 2, if not both. 100%.
Yes. And do you prefer international coaches coming in to spread the experience, or do you want to build South African coaches? Because there is a bit of good coaches out there.
I think, I certainly think there has to be, an eye on developing our own coaches, but bringing in these exceptional, you know, coaches from outside can only help. You know, as long as they are exposing their skills to the younger generation of coaches in South Africa, then I think it's a good thing. You know, not just, you know, set into the Springbok setup and they're only isolated in the Springbok setup. You know, they need to, part of their contract should be go and help at grassroots level, go coach at another level, you know, maybe mentor some Tony Brown mentoring and the young attacking coach that Rassie may have identified from a Varsity Cup campaign, whatever. I think that's valuable. I don't think it just should be just South African coaches. I do believe an international flavour definitely helps us keep at the top.
Because I remember when I was 19, 20 years old, Tony Brown came in. We had Matamore, we had Chris Jack as well, all these guys, and you like, when they get to, they don't even have to coach us or guide us, but the way they're doing things kind of gets you in a different mold a bit.
Absolutely. I always believe that a foreign, and you know, how's the Irish game developed? They've done exactly that. You know, they've brought in foreign coaches and foreign players. The French have done exactly the same. It's not to say that South African way is the wrong way. We've got the right way, but you know, that little edge, you know,
just gives us something different.
Exactly.
And you can see how we're playing the ball. Nice, little smooth.
It is exciting, and I can't wait for the second season of Tony with the box to see our
with Felix Jones connected now.
The development.
Interesting role. What is his role going to be though, Felix Jones?
I think Felix will be more like breakdown type of speed of breakdowns, technical stuff within the game that can help Tony and Flannery. That's what I think, because he's obviously done a coaching seminar at SAS as well, where he got a little bit of development skills, so he looks more on the technical stuff. That's what I think. I'm not in the management in the boardroom. I
like it.
But just from a outside, that's what I think is. Because otherwise you don't want to step on toes. If there's too much voices, the players don't know who should I look when it comes to attack. Is it Tony? Is it those type of things? So it makes a big difference, And Springbok Rugby at the moment, obviously last year we had a great season. We lost 2, I think. This year, going to Eden Park, the record that still stands, going to Wellington, and also the autumn series, but the whole season, where do you think especially when it comes to the All Blacks?
I would like to think that, I mean, obviously the group have got that, whatever their purpose is that they, on a day-to-day basis, have got, and they train and believe in that and meet about it and talk about it, the water cooler chats, whatever the case may be. They've got that, whatever that is, I don't know. But surely one of the goals would be to break that Eden Park record. And
that should, if only that game.
Surely that must be in their conversation somewhere. But maybe not. I mean,
50 tests. To break that record.
Do you think this current squad, they've won pretty much everything from British and Irish Lions, 2 back-to-back World Cup. Do you think this is the one that they would love to tick that box?
Think about it. Like you say, they've got the British and Irish Lions, 2 World Cups, a 3rd World Cup in line, and they're obviously working towards that. But in between that, there are 2 things for me that potentially could be in conversations, but it might distract them. But one is to break that record of
50 tests unbeaten for the All Blacks.
The All Blacks at Eden Park, and the other one would be the 17 or 18 unbeaten tests. This team is certainly. But I'm probably getting ahead of myself, going, that's probably not the thing to do and not the focus. But imagine if they did, then they are the greatest team of all time.
The greatest of all time.
Of all time.
Also the great.
Because then they'll break the Eden Park duck, which no test union has done, and then they break that 18 unbeaten.
Yeah.
Then they become the best.
Guys, are we on the right track? I want to know, because looking at our squad at the moment, a lot of guys overseas, a lot of guys in different, if it's Europe, even Premiership as well. But France, they play together. Toulouse, Intermark plays with Dupont. Yeah. If you look at New Zealand as well, Super Rugby, you have to play in the country to keep building. That combinations, if you play 20, 30 games for your franchise, it's an easier transition into Springbok Rugby, because now the boys need to get together now as well. And 2 tests, which we spoke about, Eden Park and Wellington, but also the following year, that's at 6 games that New Zealand comes to us for that tour. Yeah. Are we in the right track for 2027?
I think, how do they get around that? I don't know the ins and outs of it, but I would think that we don't change too much, so our style is our style, and I think it's quite easy for, and also, easy for players who are based overseas to slot in. And I think when they come back into camp, and it's the same, it's not a foreign environment, it's something that they're used to. And the key thing that how Rassie's gone around about this is that he's built, depth in each position, and he's exposed them to Springbok camps, alignment camps, whatever the case may be. He's given them test matches, and we're probably 4 or 5 deep in each position. That's the key thing. So if somebody's missing, he just slots another player in, and it's because the fact is culturally, it's the same. It's nothing different. There's no new coach. There's no new purpose. It's all the same. So I think you're right. It does put us on the back foot. But if the environment is familiar and the style of play is familiar, then it should be quite easy.
If I can throw my 2 cents into
2 cents, make it 5 rand.
So England, New Zealand, the fact that they're not selecting overseas-based players is hurting them.
Yes,
it's not. Everyone plays in the same country, but the fact that they don't have the ability to select their talent is absolutely hurting them.
Like Jack Willis for England.
It's a lot of players.
Richie Mwanga.
Harry Arundel that plays for Rising 92. Yeah. So England is definitely hurt by the fact that they cannot select those boys that went for the Euros to France. So I think for us not having our players, everybody at the Stormers, it also allows us to develop younger players because there's more gaps, there's more playing opportunities. So I absolutely love the fact that we can go and pick from everywhere in the world.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I agree.
Thank you, Wakey.
No, I agree as well. I think it's if you think about New Zealand and the players that have left their shores and who still can play for the All Blacks and had played for Scott Robertson in the Crusaders, how much value they could add, to that test side. But like you say, while those guys are away, the youngsters are getting exposure and they're getting opportunities. It's the perfect system, right?
And especially, I want to throw another 2 cents in there.
Yes, so you got money, eh?
Our system compared to the French system is very different. So the French have 14 top 14 sides. We have 4 URC teams. very different growth development for players within South Africa. They have another 16 Pro Reserve teams. There is a professional league as well with international teams. So they're sitting with 30 professional teams where players are developing every Friday and Saturday night. We have 4 teams. Where the Cheetahs not at the moment playing a high-level competition. So I think that is why it's even more important that we allow to pick from overseas so boys can get game time.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
I never knew I was that smart.
His Wi-Fi is dead. All the Google. Fleckie, but the Investing Champions Cup, there's so much debate, and we debated as well. We're in this Investing Champions Cup playing against the best. We're playing these B teams. You know, is the move to Investing Champions Cup and European rugby a good move for URC as well? Was Super Rugby the because we loved Super Rugby and it was strength against strength.
Yeah, we did, and you know, I guess towards the end, the Super Rugby was a dead-end product, and South Africa were really
that came in
on its way, out, and we needed something new. I would think that suited us. I would like to believe that the Investec Champions Cup is a very good competition. It's the best competition, club competition or provincial competition in the world. It's way stronger than Super Rugby, and it's tough for the South African sides because we don't have the depth. And we don't have the large rosters or squads that can compete against
in both competitions.
In both competitions. But I just think for our development and growth in the game, to play against those proper rugby teams, to lose in their own backyard can only be good for us. And I would love to see the South African teams compete at
100%, like full strength.
Definitely. But I understand because at the end of the day, the URC is the bread and butter, for the teams, and that's where they earn most of their money, and that's how they survive, and they can bring in, there's more games, and they can bring the people to the stadiums. But can you imagine Toulouse coming here to
like against the Sharks now,
at the Cape Town Stadium, and there's DuPont playing. I mean, it will be 70,000 people watching.
Yeah,
I would love to see us compete at that competition.
And what is the solution? Should we get more money? Should we to buy better players, to get the squad bigger? Because you must make the season at the start of the season. If I give everything for Investing Champions Cup, I'm going to be maybe 19, 12 at the URC, but you also want to play the Investing Champions Cup top 8 for the next year.
Yeah, so I think it's you're right. I think it's about a little bit about budget, a lot about budget, so you can get players in and enlarge your squad. But then also it's about the Springboks and what their rest agreements and contractually with SA Rugby and the unions. How do we do we rest them during the URC and play them in the Investec Champions Cup? That needs to be sorted out. I think that's where there's a little bit of the waters are muddy. It's grey, and if we can sort that out and make the squads bigger, then I think we can compete because we certainly got the players, the starting lineup can certainly do it.
Yeah.
Maybe, boys, what do we think about maybe the fact that the Springboks do have to rest, going with a similar thing that Leinster is doing, signing foreign players to fill those gaps. Like a Ergis Neyman, a Rabah Slimani that plays, a Jody Barrett that plays when the Irish boys are resting.
And they're still strong there.
They're still strong club teams. Maybe going where we sign 2 foreign players to each team. Either we get the intellectual property and we can strengthen our team once those Springboks are resting.
But that intellectual property is massive.
Yeah, I think
Jacques
that's...
Nina, but Leinster taking that property and all the other unions as well.
Well, the French do that, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's... I think that's excellent. That would solve, it would add value to each, South African franchise. Absolutely. I think it's... that is one way you can get around it. And while the guys are on the rest, you play. Imagine Jody Barrett coming to play here. I mean, it would be amazing.
He's coming, yeah. He's coming.
Having a David Avili playing for the Stormers when Shasha needs to rest. Just for instance, I was like, it's
money.
SWOT analysis. SWOT analysis, weakness, budget.
If it doesn't make money, it doesn't make sense. Fleckie as well, I mean, you had an incredible career, 31 caps for the Springboks. You want to celebrate that, Robert, Frank, Fleckie. I mean, talk about your career as well. I mean, the memories you had in your days. I mean, you one of my rugby icons growing up. At, the rugby you played in 1988, 1989 was incredible. What was your thoughts and feels of...
Jubies, I had fun, man. It was, I was sort of part of that era that was just coming out of amateur into professional, and so I got my first contract, I think, in 1995. I think, from the under 21s, and and I think that I've always had that sort of amateur sort of, in my makeup, and like just about having fun. This is a journey, and obviously as my career developed, I got a little bit more serious about it, but I still had that sort of,
enjoyment,
and that came through the way that I played the game, like I wasn't, I wouldn't say that I was a consistent international centre. I think I was, hot and cold, but when it was hotter, I think that I,
it was,
it was lacquer, and then when I was bad, I was probably very bad, But I had fun, and that's the way I viewed the game. And I've always, I've been very passionate about rugby since a young age, and that hasn't left me. And playing for the Springboks was obviously a huge honour, and playing for Western Province, I grew up watching Western Province, and those were my heroes, Carl Duplessis and all these guys. I wanted to play at Newlands, and I'm very, very proud of my career, and the way I had a balanced view on it, and I had lots of fun, and made a lot of friends, and who I still got to this day across, worldwide, and and I was very fortunate to finish up at Bath and finish my career, overseas, and I would have liked to have gone to France, and
was it a forced retirement or early retirement?
Yeah, no, early retirement. But I had a calf injury of all things.
Whoa.
Yeah, no, well, but it's not a common one, that. But I loved the game so much. I remember I burst into tears. I was like, that was it when they told me, you're done, you have to give up, and I was only 29, so I was still young.
Oh.
But I've just got so much passion for this game, and it keeps pulling me back. My wife keeps saying, "Look, you're done.
Yeah,
you need to chill out and go watch your kids." But there's something special about this game that keeps me
And Fleckie,
back.
does the kids know that you're a big deal? that was.
Do you know?
Do you send it to YouTube? They send it to YouTube.
So they keep getting sent that one clip where against Wales, and corner cricket does a dump tackle, and I come back in with a little punch, and they keep pointing, they go. That's all their mates keep sending them that clip. But yes, they've looked at a couple of YouTube clips, and they can't believe like the hot stepper or whatever it was. But
That's
it's good fun,
too. And yet stripping around the legs. I don't know if it was a line-out option or what.
So they said it was hamstring, like trigger points in the hamstring.
Really?
I don't know.
Okay.
The medics weren't that sharp in those days.
And things have changed a lot.
No, but they love the game, Jubies. I mean, they do. They've probably got their mother's genetics, so they're not. They look more like models than rugby players.
Surfers,
long blonde hair, but they love the game as well, which is great.
And the two factors in your life, Fleckie, coaching, playing days. Which one are you more proud of? I know the coaching isn't done yet, but you've achieved a lot within the coaching ranks.
Yes.
Which one for you is like?
Yeah, look, I mean, as you say, the coaching, I'm very passionate about coaching. I just, there's something about coaching that if you can get these guys on board and play a certain way, there's actually a lot more reward in that, than my own individual way that I play the game. And obviously, I enjoyed, the game, and you miss it. Every now and again you go, oof, I wish I could get out there and have a game.
And you still train with you. You still train with us as well.
Exactly, and I love that, and nowadays I can't. Sorry. But, I still love to have a game of touch, and I miss playing, but there's just something special about coaching, like if you get it right. And again, it's not about winning or losing. It's if you get it right, this a little style of play or a brand, or there's something more rewarding in coaching than in playing.
Okay.
And the biggest thing for me, what I take away from that, is enjoyment. I mean, you spoke about enjoyment when you played, but also with the coaching as well. And if you enjoy it and you have passion for it, you'll do the extras. You will analyze a little bit more.
Yeah.
You will see what's happening a little bit.
I think when I was the coach of the Stormers, obviously there's pressure and it's driven by results, right? And that's not enjoyable. That's when the coaching part, you lose your way. And only experienced coaches know how to get through that. And I was, I was one of the youngest Super Rugby coaches back in the day, and you sort of lose your way and the pressure gets to you. But then having a break from the game, and and looking at having my own business and raising a family and spending more time, you get to see other sides of life, and you learn a lot more, and coming back you have a lot more philosophical approach to the game, and that makes you a better coach, and there's less pressure to get results, and the pressure's on me to get a style. That's my internal pressure, and that's where I'm getting this reward and this enjoyment now.
My next question, Fleckie, is a terrible question to ask a head coach while he's busy in a season. But listening to all of your answers, and I can hear it in your voice, would Robbie Fleck be keen for another job of that magnitude? And if yes, what would you do different this time around?
Yeah, so the answer, unfortunately, is no.
Okay.
So I'm done with coaching. This is my last gig. This is me closing the loop.
The last dance.
Yeah, this is my last dance. So this is where my coaching career started. I started at UCT. Remember I coached against you at Marty's, and I coached with Dobbo.
2008,
and the way we played then was exactly where we are heading now. So I've got 2 years with the club, and I would like to close my coaching career after the next 2 years, and then call it a day.
And if Racing 92,
why Racing?
because you spoke about the love for French rugby, and
Toulouse.
I heard the hint earlier about Toulouse not being able to coach there yet.
Yeah.
If Racing 92 calls today, would that be a longer thinking process?
Sure, it's a tough question.
Racing, okay, what is your email address? We'll send it to Racing.
Yeah, as I say, I would like to think that closing the loop is going to be at UCT from where it started to where it ends. But the French way, there's something special about that.
Something about your personality and the way you see the game that I think, that's my 1 cent Ruckers, perfect match made in heaven.
No, thank you.
One thing that will bring him back is also the tackle to the box. Yeah?
Oh, no. No, definitely done.
Okay. Fleckie, thank you very much for the time, and we really appreciate it. I know you got a lot going on. It's Varsity Cup, but also is tense and all this in business and stuff like that. But thanks for making the time. I mean, you my role model when I was 8 years old looking at rugby, especially the Man in Black and Western Stormers days, and what you've done. You spoke about enjoyment as well. And I mean, the youngsters today with the academy, they're so focused on other things, but the enjoyment keeps you in the loop. But thanks a lot for making the time.
Thank you, guys.
Appreciate it.
And it's awesome to pick your rugby brain.
No, thank you,
guys. It
guys.
was fantastic.
It's, you humble me. Thank you very much for having me.
Appreciate it. Ruckers, you see, we sort you out, okay? Like always, Behind the Ruck is supported by SuperSport Bet, the one and only SuperSport Bet. So if it's your time, download the app now, because a lot of rugby going on as well, and also Ticket Pro that's in the building. So thanks for tuning in. It's time to like, share, and subscribe. They know.
Please.
They know by now, okay?
Please,
guys. It's very important. That's episode 86 in the building, guys. I'm Juan de Jong.
I'm Rudy Page.
I'm Robbie Fleck.
And the Ruck is clear. Bye-bye.